What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is going to be Accent Expert gives a tour of the US accents, part 1. So first, if you want to see part 2, let me know in the comments. Secondly, this is going to be absolutely awesome. We did do a video a while back on the accents of the US. It was a very brief video. It kind of just skimmed over a lot of them, and a lot of the comments were that they weren't that accurate, and this one is a much better one. Now, it's taken me some time. I have got around to it, and we're going to enjoy this one today. Like I've said in so many videos, like my Bill Burr one the other day, I didn't know where I was from. Apparently he's from Boston. I'm just useless with accents. I'm useless with accents all over the world, never mind just the US. So hopefully we're going to learn a little bit today. And obviously I've got a completely different accent to you guys as well, which at the moment it sounds a bit croaky because I haven't got COVID. It was the England football game. I was screaming quite a lot, so that is why it's gone. But I normally have a bit more of an accent. I don't know if it gets rid of my accent or not, to be honest with you. Let me know in the comments. But we're going to go through this Accent Expert giving us a tour of the US. I'm keen for this one. It's going to be a long one, so make sure you get your popcorn ready and buckle in. Hit that subscribe button, guys. Hit that like button as well, you absolute legends. And yeah, let's get straight into it.
New York City, Trenton, North Carolina, Ocracoke Island, Mississippi, and northern Florida. That's where you get the sort of Blanche Dubois, Scarlett O'Hara kind of classical Southern accent. Hi, my name...
Wow, if he's doing them all, by the way, in a 21-minute video, I'm going to be so impressed. I can't do any accents. I'm going to be so amazed if he's doing... Well, even... I'm amazed that he's done them ones. They were all completely different from different areas. Some southern ones in there. Oh, this is going to be a good video.
My name is Eric Singer. I'm a dialect coach. Today, we're going to take a little tour of some of the different accents of English-speaking North America.
Oh, oh no, I said one of them was Southern, and he said North America. I could have sworn one of them sounded Southern to me. I told you I was used to accents.
Now, a couple of quick disclaimers. These are by no means all the accents in North America, or even all the English-speaking ones. And not everyone from the same place sounds the same. Accents vary by socioeconomic background, generation, ethnicity.
Socioeconomic. I get what he means by that word, but wow. What a word. What a word.
And race, and all kinds of individual factors. Because in a very real way, accent is identity. Different people from the same place have more or less localizable accents, and that usually has to do with identity too. Now, on some of our stops, we're going to be looking at some of the most distinctive and interesting local features, but it doesn't mean that everyone from there has that accent or has it to the same degree. I'm also going to have some linguists and language experts from around the continent join me today to lend their expertise in some of these areas.
Hi, I'm Megan Figueroa.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
Peace. I'm Sun Michaud.
Hi, I'm Kalina.
Hi, I'm Imani Doran.
One of the things you'll notice along the way is that accents often don't follow political boundaries, especially ones like state lines. They'll follow major geographical boundaries, things like mountains, for sure. But what regional accent differences mostly reflect is settlement patterns and contact. Historically isolated communities, like Ocracoke Island in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, or the Sea Islands in the Lowcountry in Georgia, can have really distinctive speech ways. They've had the time and isolation necessary to diverge and develop them.
Yeah, you also see that as well. Again, sorry for interrupting. I won't interrupt too much in this one because it's going to be super, super interesting. You get a lot of, I don't know, again, you might get in America people moving states, but you get some, like, let's say with soccer, a few football players going over to, let's say, France, and they suddenly have a French accent, you know what I mean? Because it's who they're talking to day in, day out. They start using them words and start sounding like them, which isn't a bad thing one bit, but it is just who you're talking to day in, day out. It just picks it up, and subconsciously, I don't know what it is, maybe we'll learn, you just pick up these things, and then it's ingrained in you until you move somewhere else. It starts getting ingrained again, if that makes sense.
That's the other thing that makes for accent variety. Time. There's a lot more accent diversity in the British Isles, for example, where there are local populations that have been speaking English in their particular way for hundreds and hundreds of years. And there's more accent diversity on the east coast of the US than there is west of the Mississippi.
Makes sense.
It's been settled by English speakers longer. The first places English was spoken in North America were Roanoke, Jamestown, and of course, Plymouth, Massachusetts, where the Pilgrims landed in 1620. So let's start there. The Pilgrims spoke with what we call rhotic accents, meaning they said all their R's. In fact, so did almost all English speakers in 1620, including the ones in England. That's right, a Southern English accent might have used to sound something like this.
A very typical, what I would say, posh English accent. That's a great example. That's what I would have pictured them sounding like back in the day. That's all. This guy is quality. He knows so much already. Wow.
It was only in the late 18th century that fashionable young people in and around London started dropping their R's. And from there, the trend spread to America. Now, north of Plymouth Rock, we have Harvard Yard. One of the places you might hear a Boston accent today. The stereotypical Boston accents, of course, are non-rhotic, meaning no R sounds in park your car in Harvard Yard. Let's all get in the car and head south down the coast now into Rhode Island. Traditional Rhode Island accents here are still non-rhotic, but there's a key vowel difference. The placement for that vowel sound in park your car in Harvard Yard. We call this the start vowel. In Boston, it's usually pretty fronted. Park your car in Harvard Yard. In Rhode Island, it's back. Park your car in Harvard Yard.
Okay, I think I get the difference. You got the Boston is very fronted, so it's the front letter. You got the start of a vowel, so it's your A and stuff like that in car, and then I feel like I've got that right. I think I get it again. Hopefully you guys get it because we're learning so much in this.
Rhode Island accents were shaped by a lot of Irish and Italian immigration, just like New York City. So many accents. They don't vary by borough, by the way. That's a myth. I know you guys are going to tell me to forget about it, but I'm sorry. Sociolinguists have studied this really carefully, and there just really isn't any such thing as a specifically Brooklyn or specifically Bronx accent.
Oh, wow.
There certainly are a lot of different New York City accents, but they vary by socioeconomic background and by ethnicity and other aspects of group belonging and identity, more than by neighborhood or by borough. They're historically non-rhotic, though that's changing some in the youngest generations for sure. Here's something fun most of them have in common. The tongue tip hits the teeth, or close to them, on TD and N sounds instead of, a little further back. So you can hear that in like this kind of New York City accent, tongue tip on the teeth, Times Square, New York City, and this kind of New York accent, 22nd Street, Times Square, Dumbo, taxis, traffic, and so on. Okay, so you may have noticed that all of these accents I've talked about so far sound pretty white. I'm going to take a pause here, and linguist Nicole Holliday is going to go a little deeper on African American English varieties.
I mean, personally, I hadn't thought that. I guess I was just thinking of the place, to be honest with you, and what I'd heard from TV. But it's awesome we're going to get different cultures and backgrounds for these accents as well, because it definitely does make a difference. So that is awesome. I didn't expect it. That's awesome.
My colleague, Amani Dorn, is going to demonstrate some of those accents.
Hi, I'm Nicole Holliday, and I'm a linguist. As we know, New York has all kinds of people in it. African American English has a lot of shared features across regions because of its history. So Black people in Africa were kidnapped and brought to what is now the United States.
Yep.
At the time, they didn't all speak the same languages. They spoke multiple different African languages. And those languages came into contact not only with each other, but those languages were also coming into contact with the English spoken by the colonizers. This created a situation where there was a really unusual learning exposure to English, right? So there are all of these languages in contact with each other. And for economic and survival reasons, the enslaved people had to, in some ways, acquire English. But the English that they were acquiring was not like what you learn in the classroom, right? It was under this really unusual situation of acquisition. So some of the features that we see in modern African American English are a result of this contact between the African languages as well as the English spoken by colonizers, and those features have persisted over generations. After slavery was legally ended, the majority of African Americans remained in the South but experienced really extreme segregation. This led to different varieties of English being spoken in Black and white communities within the South, and even as they moved north during the Great Migration.
Nicole, how did the Great Migration influence accents?
The English that we see today spoken by African Americans has some features that have persisted throughout generations. TH stopping, so that might be using something like a D sound for where you see a written TH. So dat for that. You can hear that in this clip.
Wow.
They said I could participate online. They said I could participate online.
L vocalization. So that's an L turning into a vowel in a word like pool or pull. Might sound something like pool or pull.
He said that's cool. That's cool.
We also see consonant cluster simplification. If you have a series of consonants at the end of a word, you might see them turned into just one consonant. So in a word like west, you might hear it pronounced as west.
It's been a minute, but she just left.
And anything specific to New York?
One feature common in New York City is what we call a raised vowel in words like thought and cloth. It sounds something like aw.
Coffee without froth on top isn't coffee at all. So let's get it together.
Okay, let's go back to Eric.
Thank you, Nicole.
Wow. Oh, like what history there. I'm learning so much. I hope you guys are enjoying this if you haven't seen this. What history? Who would have thought? I completely get the generation thing, but I personally have never, ever thought about it, link it back to slavery and stuff like that, which is obviously goes without saying a tragic event, but I wouldn't have guessed them trying to figure out what the slave owners were saying and stuff like that, trying to feed off them to survive, learn the English, would have crept in to today's language. And it is absolutely amazing that it does, and it's something which I don't really know how to describe it. I'm honestly amazed by that. And I should have really, I guess, maybe I'm an idiot for not thinking that it's come through. But I suppose when it's like long ago, I've never really thought about it. But I'm learning so much in this video, I'm definitely have to do more of these.
And even that's just the tip of the iceberg for linguistic diversity in this incredibly diverse city. Around 50% of New Yorkers speak languages other than English at home.
Wow.
And for half of those, that language is Spanish. Megan Figueroa is here to tell us a little bit about one of those varieties, a variety linguists call New York Latino English.
New York Latino English is heavily influenced by Puerto Rican Spanish and Dominican Spanish. One remarkable feature of this variety is a light L, the sound that you would find in a word like, love, leaf.
Right, so New York Latino English speakers have a particularly light L. You can hear that in this native speaker clip.
I guess growing up, I know what it's like to not have a lie. I know what it's like to not have a lie.
Yeah,
in contrast to the light L, when you produce the dark L, the back of your tongue bunches. So think about the words milk and pull.
Milk. Oh yeah, you do. I probably look like an idiot doing this.
The lighter L was a feature of New York Latino English. But Latinx people are a very diverse group of people, and they speak a variety of varieties. We'll get to more of those later.
Thank you, Megan. And this single feature is a good contrast with other New York accents, by the way, because most other New York accents have pretty dark L's. Lots of lemon lollipops, la. I like to lick them.
Okay.
So now, as we leave New York and head south into Jersey and towards Philadelphia, we cross a major dialect boundary, the on line. Now, north of this line, most people say on, rhymes with don. South of it, they say on, rhymes with dawn. Of course, this doesn't apply at all if you rhyme dawn and dawn, only if you have two distinct pronunciations.
Yeah.
That's called the cot-caught merger, but we'll talk more about that later. There are a few major dialect areas in the U.S., and one of the biggest dividing lines is between northern dialects and midland dialects.
Okay.
The on line basically runs right along this boundary. So as we cross over it somewhere around Trenton, we've crossed from the north to the Midlands, dialect-wise. Now, another thing that starts to happen as we get down towards Philly is that the goat diphthong starts to move forwards in the mouth. So we get go, hoagies. You want to go get some hoagies? Goat gets maybe even a little further forward as we get down to Baltimore, especially, Danny Ocean. You want to go Danny Ocean on Wednesday?
Oh my God, this is mental. Honestly, the fact that you can kind of distinguish a line and certain words, but you can start hearing what I would have guessed is a typical more southern accent. Yes, I know we're still talking about North America, but it's starting to get a bit of that southern twang, which I've only seen on TV. I've only really learned from his reaction videos. And again, I may be completely wrong. It's just so mental. And I know it maybe shouldn't be, because I know in the UK, from city to city, you have completely different accents, and I'm used to that. But it's just when you put it this way, all the science going into it, this guy's producing it amazing that, it's just amazing to watch.
Let's make a quick stop in D.C., where Nicole has some really interesting stuff on the prosody of local African-American speakers.
Okay.
In my research, I study prosody, which has to do with the tone and intonation of the phrase itself. In a study, I found that African-American speakers may be more likely to ask a yes-no question with a level tone or a falling tone. For white speakers, we expect a rising tone in questions like these. So something like, did you do the dishes? But African-American speakers may be more likely to say something like, did you do the dishes? Another feature that we see in DC, similar to New York, is the raised thought cloth vowel, that ah. This is a new feature in DC, and we think it's part of a pattern of DC varieties becoming more like northern cities as opposed to the South. You can hear that in this clip.
Change is needed, but at what cost? At what cost?
Wow.
Okay, let's go back to Eric.
Now we take a quick detour over to Pittsburgh. Yous are the only people in all of North America that smooths the mouth diphthong, except for maybe Chicago sometimes. Now, smoothing is when you take a diphthong, like ow, and smooth it out so it's just one sound, ah. Just like we have price smoothing in much of the South, so that I smooths out to just ah, price. Same thing here, except with the mouth vowel smoothing out to a long ah sound. Yins want to meet downtown, go shopping for catches? Heading back over to the Delmarva Peninsula, as we head down into Virginia, we get something different happening with that same mouth diphthong. Here it's going to sound like oat, mouth, house. So it's not smoothing out here, it's raising. The tongue starts a little higher up, instead of ah, so it's like oat, a boat, house. This feature is called tidewater raising. Something similar happens with this vowel.
Grammarly does
You know what? We can watch as many ads as you want. We'll watch as many ads as you
more
want.
than catch errors. With Grammarly,
This video
you can
is
In
quality.
Canada, and there we call it Canadian raising, but it's essentially the same thing happening. Time to get out of the house, keep heading south. Down in North Carolina, we really start to hear pretty significant goat fronting again. So the vowel sound in boat, most, hope starts with the tongue further forwards in the mouth, o. Interestingly, goat fronting, which is now widespread in a lot of the American South, seems to have originated in North Carolina sometime in the last part of the 19th century. Remember that regional dialect boundaries don't necessarily follow political boundaries. They follow settlement patterns and contact patterns between populations.
That makes sense.
So the inland part of North Carolina, which is in the Appalachian Highlands, the original European settlers were Scotch-Irish folks and Germans moving southwest from Pennsylvania. Due to being relatively inaccessible and isolated for a long time, the accent is distinct from the lowlands and from the coastal areas. Now, isolated speech communities are fascinating because we can get some really interesting sound patterns. Up here you get some really dramatic face lowering, for example. So the diphthong in face starts real low, down around ah, I. Face.
Now, I know he's reading off a script, but it's so impressive how he's just switching between the different accents. He's a pro at his job. He is a pro at his job. This video was awesome. I'm learning so much. It's so impressive. And we've got to do more of these. Let me know if you want to see more of these. You want to see part 2 or whatever, because I'm so enjoying this. And it's not really a reaction. I'm just watching it because I'm not going to comment too much because it's just awesome. And I'm learning so much. There's so much to take in.
Light. Die. You'll also get some particular dialect features, so words and word order and grammar things that stretch way back to those original settlers from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Things like a hunting and a fishing, and extra sounds too, like the R sound in wash and the H sound in hit. Get on with hit. Here's Nicole again to talk a little bit about African American speech in Southern Appalachia.
Hi again. So African Americans in Appalachia are understudied, mostly because stereotypes of Appalachia are very white. African Americans in Appalachia may be more likely to be rhotic, so in words like floor,
Why up there on the fourth floor? Fourth floor, floor.
You'll get the R, whereas in other places you might get flo. African Americans in Appalachia also tend to follow the more general Southern pattern with respect to I monophthongization, ah in wide, turning to ah, so you get wad. And now the map tour continues with Eric.
Thank you, Nicole. We're picking up again in North Carolina. Over in the Outer Banks, there's an even more historically isolated community because of a shift in shipping patterns in the mid-19th century. And probably also because of sympathizing with the Northern cause in the Civil War. Ocracoke Island was relatively isolated from the mainland for a long time. It developed maybe one of the most distinctive and different dialects in North America. Obliging islanders will sometimes say to tourists, well, it's high tide on the...
I know I just said English. I meant Irish. Leave me alone. I'm tired. England lost yesterday. This video is amazing. I'm in my own little bubble.
Same side. Last night the water fire, night the moonshine, no fish.
Definitely Irish.
Ocracoke Islanders are sometimes called high tiders because of that particularly distinctive I sound. And their accent is sometimes taken to be British or Australian, even by Brits. And truth be told, there are some similarities with some regional English accents, including that high tide vowel sound, which is similar to both southwestern English accents like Devon or Gloucestershire, and East Anglian accents like Norfolk and Suffolk, those easternmost counties of England.
But yeah, see, let me off. He's already excusing me. He knew what I'd definitely done, and he's excusing me. I love it. Thank you. He even knows what makes me happy by excusing Beasley, so it's not a Beasley butcher.
Curiously, another distinctive thing about the old Ocracoke accent is it's also got a real sort of bounce to it, which is something that both those Southwestern and those East Anglian accents also have in common. North Carolina is actually one of the most linguistically diverse states in the country. I want to bring in Kalina Newmark now to talk about Native American English.
Hello, my name is Kalina Newmark, and I am Talita Dene First Nations from the Northwest Territories, Canada. I come from a strong line of Dene and Métis leaders who are passionate about our language and cultural teachings. The Lumbee tribe is the largest state-recognized Native American tribe in North Carolina. Lumbee speakers combine and pronounce English words that distinguish them from African American and Southern speakers. Since encountering white settlers in the mid-1800s, the Lumbee have carved out a dialect of English that is uniquely theirs. One interesting feature is that Lumbee English speakers share vowel sounds present in the Outer Banks accent, where tide is pronounced toid. You can hear that in this native speaker clip.
Well, when he got halfway, that little ditch on this side, ditch on this side, ditch on this side.
Yeah, wow, you can hear it.
Kalina. So that Ocracoke Island high tider accent is an accent that's disappearing fast. The younger Ocracokers tend to speak much more mainstream American English. There's a popular idea that we're losing regional accents, that people are sounding more and more similar.
I'm gonna guess he's gonna go onto social media and stuff. I don't like interrupting. Well, actually, I do. I waffle all the time. I interrupt all the time. You guys always have a go at me for it. Some of you love it, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna be this whole. You're talking to people across the world all the time online. For example, me and you guys. I watch videos of Americans reacting. You guys, for some reason, watch me reacting, and maybe that tweaks everyone's accent a little bit and normalizes everyone's accent a little bit. That's what I assume we're going down.
That's true of some people in some places, especially some of these isolated communities. But it's not true across the board. There are actually plenty of accent differences that are getting more and more distinct over time.
Oh, wow.
But of course, it's a complex picture. There are parts of the South that don't have all that much Southern about them, accent-wise. Raleigh, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas are two good examples. A lot of people from those two cities may be pretty hard to identify by their accents. Which brings us to what is sometimes called General American. What's General American? The first thing is, it's not one accent. It's basically a terrible term for a wide variety of accents that essentially don't have a lot of obvious regionally distinctive features in them. We're going to talk to Sun Michaud now. Sun is a native speaker of Gullah, a fascinating and really important Creole language spoken in the Low Countries in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida.
Gullah is a language spoken in a region of the United States called the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor, which extends officially from Wilmington, North Carolina, down to Jacksonville, Florida. Gullah is an Atlantic Creole, most similar with Bahamian Creole English and Bajan Creole. In fact, when I visited the Bahamas, a bunch of the local them thought that I'd been a local too. There are a variety of factors that inform the language. For instance, the secluded plantations on the Sea Island, a mixture of African languages, as well as the accents of lower class English and Irish indentured servants and slavers. European slavers were so ill-suited for the Sea Island's environment that they would often afford long periods of solitary time to our ancestors with little to no oversight. Slavers would mismatch the languages in order to confound them and hinder their ability to organize rebellions. Now, the scheme of this tactic was designed for our Gullah Geechee ancestors to be forced to speak English so that their overseers could be privy to their communication. But what slavers didn't predict is that this first generation English-based African pidgin would develop into a Creole, a fully mature rule-governed language of its own, much of which remains with us today due to generations of forced segregation and eventual separation by choice before the building of bridges that increased easy access to and fro. I'm going to walk you through a few distinct features of the Gullah Geechee accent. For example, the kit-foot vowels are reversed for the words fish and foot to sound like fush and fit. The lot trap vowels are reversed for god and pat to sound like gad and pot. The softening of the T's, where butter and bent would sound like butter and bane. Gullah speakers also drop consonants for vowels where the two words meet. For instance, in the sentences that gal there and that boy there, the word for there, there, adds or subtracts the D depending on if there's a consonant or a vowel preceding it. The importance of accent to the Gullah Geechee language simply cannot be overstated.
Yes.
It is the clearest bond between ourselves and other displaced Africans throughout colonized spaces in the Black diaspora. How we sound is as important as what we say, because our accent is a statement in itself. This has been your Gullah teacher, son Michaud. Stay safe, and as always, we out here.
Awesome, man.
Thank you so much, son. So, if you're keeping count, that's 6 Southern accents already, even though we're not being remotely comprehensive here, and we've only been through a few states. Lots more to come. As we get into the Piney Woods belt, southern Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, and northern Florida, we get into one of the parts of the South that's always been rhotic. A lot of the South was historically non-rhotic. That's where you get this sort of Blanche Dubois, Scarlett O'Hara kind of classical Southern accent.
Oh, wow.
You can hear that in this clip here.
I've always depended on the kindness of strangers.
You hear how there's no R in strangers?
Strange.
That's a non-rhotic accent. But that's changed, and changed fast over the last few decades, so that most younger white Southerners are now rhotic. In most of the Piney Woods belt, though, they always have been. Now, Nicole talked about the fact that some African-American speakers in the Southern Appalachians smooth out the I diphthong, the price vowel in some words, and we get a long I sound. But in other words, it stays a diphthong, I. And this is a pattern we find in a lot of the South. In most of the Piney Woods belt, though, there's always been what we can describe as full price smoothing, where some Southerners smooth the diphthong in words like fly, rise, and ride, but use a diphthong in rice and right. Here in the Piney Woods belt, we're going to smooth them all. Fly, rise, ride, and rice, ride, life.
Yeah, and that's what reminds me of a very Southern accent, that kind of just moving it out, which I didn't ever use the word smooth before I watched this video. I would have never used that, and it's awesome to get. It's not, well, yeah, it's terminology at the end of the day, and it's awesome.
And so on. There's an interesting posture thing here, too, which is that you start to get tongue tips that are very edge-focused. And what I mean by that is that instead of using this part of the tongue, the blade, for things like T and D sounds, so that there's a lot of surface contact, duh, we just use the narrow edge of the tongue, so it's a more focused contact area, duh. 10 tired turtles talk about dentists. We're going to end part one right here, but we're going to continue this all the way across the continent. We're going to go to Chicago and Southern California, and yes, absolutely, we'll get out in a boat up in Canada.
Wow, let me know if you want to see part 2. I seriously enjoyed that. That was absolutely awesome. I enjoyed the last accent video, but like I said, you guys told me it was brief. It is nowhere near the quality of this video. This was absolutely awesome. I've learned so much, and I've seriously enjoyed it. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it, guys. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Because you can see part 2. It will, if you want it, it will be out. Let me know in the comments. Have a fantastic day, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.